Well, we're coming to your city. Well, we scream down Mizzou to roll tide home. Go Big Blue. Had a ball down on the line, even on the beat. We saw blue turf and the tomahawk chop, and the gators in the swamp. Yeah, Big Sioux, you go Gamecocks, they all got game. We're coming to your city. And if you want a little thing in you, if you want a little zing in your zang zang, if you want a little zing in your tang tang, come along, come along, come along, come along. Yeah, we're coming to your city.
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is that time for my weekly pick show we call the Blitz for the week of October the 8th. And before we get into my picks, and believe me, I am in no hurry whatsoever to get to my picks from last week, in which after 2 terrific weeks, I finally have the week from HE double hockey sticks. It was bad, really bad. We'll talk about that in a second. And I'll have my picks for the upcoming week for whatever it's worth. But first, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in the Big 12. A lot of developments with the Missouri Tigers. Just when you thought things had quieted down with the Big 12, yeah, right. Yeah, the Missouri, earlier this week, they had a big meeting, their head honchos, and they gave their big head honcho the approval to explore going to other conferences, including maybe going to the SEC. Well, this morning on October 6th, SEC, some of the schools don't want Missouri to go. So right now they don't have the SEC's entire blessing to get into that prestigious league, the best league in all of college football. Missouri's also, since last year, has wanted to join the Big Ten. Problem is, Big Ten doesn't want them. So Missouri, it's one of those things where they haven't been happy in the Big 12 for an extensive period of time. They want to go somewhere else, but right now, those two conferences don't have their full blessing. That could change, though, with the SEC. We'll have to find out in the upcoming days or perhaps weeks if the SEC changes its mind. But as of right now, Missouri is still in the Big 12. Speaking of the Big 12, on this very day, coincidentally October 6th, we have just found out through ESPN that it looks like TCU will be joining the Big 12, which will make it the 10th school to be a part of the league effective next year. Now you might be saying, well, TCU was supposed to be in the Big East. Yeah, that was the case, but now TCU joining the Big 12, from all accounts, they will have to pay the Big East $5 million to break that deal. So TCU looks like will be the 10th member of the Big 12 effective in 2012. My thoughts on it, on one hand, I think geographically makes sense, okay? It makes sense because you're in northern Texas. It's not going to be too long of a trip for any of the Big 12 schools, especially for the two Oklahoma schools. It also makes sense from the TV perspective from Dallas-Fort Worth because you have that market, even though, in my opinion, Dallas-Fort Worth was already Big 12 country anyway. But now it really solidifies it. Where I don't really know if it's all that good of a deal for the Big 12 is the fact that, TCU financially compared to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas pale in comparison. Financially, they don't really bring anything to your league. Their facilities, I'm not calling them trash. In fact, they've actually upgraded their football facilities. But it's still a stadium that seats, about 50,000. So, you're not going to see 85,000 fans at a TCU home game. There's just no way. Unlike OU, OSU, or Texas. In the case of Texas, their stadium seats over $100,000. So from a financial standpoint, I don't think it brings anything. Geographic standpoint, it does. And we'll see how they do in this league. I know they've had a lot of success in recent years. Last year, finishing number 2 in the country and undefeated. In fact, they've had back-to-back undefeated regular seasons before this year. But we're finding out that maintaining that success is not easy because of personnel. And this year, they've already lost 2 ball games. I know TCU has done very well in the Mountain West. We're going to see, though, how they do playing the likes of the Oklahoma schools, Texas, and Missouri if they choose to stay or have nowhere else to go but to stay in the Big 12. We'll see how TCU does year in and year out against those teams as well as the rest of the league. Now, we can get into my picks. And last week, you know what? Before last week, I was feeling pretty good. 19-9-1. Last week, 4-10 against the spread. Man, I could not win for losing. Just could not get it going. So for the year, I am now documented 23-19-1 against the spread. I'm only 4 games above 500. Hopefully these 14 games will get me back on the winning streak. So let's talk about the Big 12 first. Kansas at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, as you imagine, is a huge favorite in this one. The undefeated Cowboys, a 31-point favorite. I take Oklahoma State to win, but 31 points is gigantic, and Kansas's offense is not bad, so I think OSU probably wins by 4 touchdowns, but I don't think they're going to cover the 31. Kansas might get a backdoor cover, so I'll take Kansas plus the 31. Iowa State at Baylor. The Bears lost their first game last week, blowing a lead against Kansas State and losing a close one. Iowa State getting shellacked by Texas and coming back down to earth. So Baylor at home, I think they bounce back, and I think they win big behind RG3 and win the game by that 15 points, at least by 15. So give me Baylor minus a 15. A&M at Tech. Going to be a good game. The Red Raiders still undefeated after beating Kansas. They are a 9.5-point underdog against an A&M team that cannot hold on to leads. I think this will be a high-scoring game. Wouldn't surprise me if Tech pulled it off, but even if they don't, I think because it'll be high-scoring, they will keep it close. So I will take Tech plus the 9.5. And then you have Mizzou at Kansas State, a very difficult game to call, believe me. Mizzou already lost 2 games this year. Defensively, they've been exposed. And I think Kansas State at home, I think they keep the momentum going. They're one of the big surprises nationwide in college football this year. Bill Snyder knows how to get it done. So give me K-State minus a 3.5. Florida at LSU, the Tigers simply much better. And Florida is banged up. I look for LSU to cover that 14 points. Georgia, 2-point favorite at Tennessee. Bulldogs have played better since starting very slow, and I look for them to win at Tennessee against a defense that's not very good. Georgia minus the 2 points. Miami at Va-Tech. Hokies got surprised last week and got surprised big time by Clemson. The fact that they got killed by Clemson at Blacksburg. And Miami, it's not a full-strength team. It won't be for the rest of the year. I look for Va-Tech to win. They usually play Miami tough. Va-Tech minus a 7.5. And then Maryland at Georgia Tech. Even though Maryland's not a bad team, they still have a hard time stopping the run, and Georgia Tech specializes in the run. I'm finally going to drink the Yellow Jacket Kool-Aid and say Georgia Tech, they're going to win minus a 14. Iowa is at Penn State. Iowa recently beats Penn State. They just know how to beat them. Doesn't matter where they play them at. I think the wrong team might be favored in this game. Iowa, give me the Hawkeyes plus the 3.5. Air Force is at Notre Dame. Expect Air Force in that triple option attack to threaten Notre Dame. I think the Fighting Irish win, but that's a lot of points at home, so I will take Air Force plus a 15.5. Ohio State's at Nebraska. Ohio State right now has no offense whatsoever, and I think Nebraska, after getting humiliated in that second half against Wisconsin, Bo Pelini has his Huskers ready to play at home in prime time. Nebraska to win minus the 11. Auburn is at Arkansas. I think this is going to be a terrific ball game. Arkansas, the come from behind win against A&M, and Auburn, you know what? They're better than I thought. This young Auburn team is better than I thought, and they're probably a year away from being back in contention. I think they give Arkansas all they want, so give me Auburn plus the 10. And Arizona State at Utah. The Utes, I know they blew BYU out earlier, but this is a Utah team that still has issues defensively. Arizona State, they're a 4-point dog, but I think they're the better team. So give me Arizona State plus the 4. And TCU at San Diego State. This will be a bounce-back week for the Horned Frogs after getting stunned at home by their Dallas rivals SMU. I look for them to go on the road, and Gary Patterson will have his team ready to play. TCU minus a 3.5 over the Aztecs. That does it for the Blitz. We'll catch you next time, and don't forget my OU Texas postgame show sometime Saturday. So long.